Okay, hi everyone. Just give us 1 minute to let everybody in and we'll get going ASAP. It's a big group today. Welcome, welcome. Okay, there everybody's flooding in. We'll let them do that as we start. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lauren Howarth. I'm the head of marketing at Zeroe. I am joined by Ali Najafian, our co-founder and CTO, and Farooq Javani, founder and CEO of Zeroe. We have got a packed system for you today. So let me just run through the agenda with you so you know what's about to come. So I'm going to be talking about why this conversation now, what are the implications. Farooq's going to take you through what if you do nothing about AI. Then I'm going to jump back in and talk about the costs of AI that we just simply can't ignore. Then we're going to move on to how AI is already delivering benefits for sustainability. Then Ali is going to join us and he's going to kind of bring it down into how this applies in an enterprise environment. He's going to take you through a short demo of how AI works in our system, and then I'll do a final wrap right at the end. Welcome, welcome to everybody else. All right, let's jump straight into it. Why this conversation now? Keeping 1.5 degrees Celsius alive means a 42% cut in global emissions by 2030 and a 57% cut by 2035. Right now, policy trajectories point us closer to around 2.6 to 3.1 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. Now, this gap can't be closed without enterprises. Scope 3 sits with value chains. At procurement, product design, capital allocation, in a handful of global sectors will decide whether targets hold or they slip. All the meanwhile, AI adoption is going mainstream. 78% of organizations already use it somewhere in the organization. That's any application of AI. It could be small scale, experimental, even limited to a single department. An example would be one team doing predictive maintenance. Now that's 78%. 65% are already embedding it into the day-to-day workflows. This signals institutionalized adoption, not experimentation anymore. And hyperscale infrastructure spend is at record levels to support all of this. This curve will not pause for sustainability. These are some of the realities that we're looking at the moment. Then if we jump into governance, the governance bar is also rising. IFRS, S2, CSRD, and other frameworks make lineage, methods, and controls table stakes, the price of entry for credibility. So it's our thesis at this point that AI is not a silver bullet, but if it's used deliberately and measured honestly, it can accelerate mitigation and adaptation. The question is how leaders choose to apply it in ways that speeds decarbonization up rather than hardwiring it in new costs. So now that we've set the scene, let's take a look at the implications if your organization does nothing about AI. And we'll hand over to Farooq.
Hello, how are you? So I think, before we kind of look at the costs or the benefits, I think it's kind of important to kind of acknowledge the momentum behind AI. This isn't a hype cycle. It's not a niche trend. There's questions around, are we seeing overvalued AI companies? Is too much money pouring in? And I think that will, there'll be some natural correction there. But I think, what's a fact, right? Like global adoption is accelerating. Capital is flowing in the trillions. Whether it's an enterprise deployment and a big company adopting AI across their organization or national strategies that are kind of pegged against productivity and competitiveness, everything is really tied to AI going forward, right? It is the hot topic, more so than sustainability, unfortunately, for some of us that are probably attending this, which say, well, at the end of the day, what are the two big changes happening in our lifetimes? Climate change and the fact that AI is going to transform how everything works. In many countries, AI is now foundational infrastructure. In the UAE, the amount that's being poured into data centers and the infrastructure that's going to be required to support AI is enormous. So I don't think the context is really, do we engage with AI? It's how quickly we are doing, how quickly we will, and how do we responsibly engage with AI? Go to the next slide, Lauren. Now, what is the enterprise cost of deploying AI adoption? We work with a lot of organizations that are, well, how are our company won't let us use it. They're not allowed, we're not able to, deploy models. We're not able to use ChatGPT. And we work with some companies that are moving rather quickly in this space. I think, the cost isn't abstract. There's clear numbers behind this. Research shows that businesses lose 1.8 trillion every year in productivity. Employees waste over 5 hours a week just hunting for information. I'm sure we've all experienced this and been there. I mean, I leverage AI in almost everything I do, but I still end up going back to my file explorer and searching for files buried in 3 layers of folders. But chasing down information from colleagues, sending out emails, following up on templates, and 5 hours a week per employee over the course of the year, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of money. And that's a lot of our, individual capacity that's going, that's lost to something that can now effectively be eliminated. Organizations on average lose 10 to 15 million a year annually on manual workflows. People waiting for someone else to do something, send them an email, follow up on information. An example of this is a company processing invoices manually has a cost of $13 to $16 per invoice in let's say mature developed markets, and in less developed markets probably $5 to $6 per invoice. With automation, you bring that cost down between $1 to $6. That's $120,000 of savings for just 1,000 invoices. So that gives you a bit of an idea of just simple flows within businesses that are manual, that become automated, that become intelligent, can drastically improve the productivity of an organization. AI leaders are seeing higher revenue growth. There's a famous MIT study a few weeks ago. I don't know if many of you have seen that or read it. And it said, well, people investing in AI are not seeing the returns in terms of sales or top line revenue. But what they are seeing, and that was kind of hidden in behind the headlines, what they are seeing is efficiency, right? Productivity, and effectively the ability to maintain or grow their margins rather than having those margins erode. So I can, the way we kind of look at it is you can delay AI adoption, but the costs are mounting, right? Those who don't adopt face slower processes, higher costs, weaker margins, and more than anything, they're less competitive. So doing nothing isn't really, it's not neutral. It's just actively taking steps to fall behind, in our view today. You're on mute, Lauren. Lauren, you're on mute.
It always happens to one of us.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Farooq. So before we dive into how AI is already delivering for sustainability, we need to squarely address the footprint. These are the real costs of AI, not the opportunity costs that Farooq has just spoken about, but more the actual costs. So let's dive straight into it. In terms of electricity demand is tied to AI workloads. AI doesn't just live in the cloud, it runs in physical data centers, and those data centers use a lot of power. There are 2 main phases that you may or may not be aware of. When a model is being built, this is called training, and this can take days or even weeks running on thousands of specialized chips at once. Chip demand actually doubles every 9 months, roughly, give or take, and that requires exponentially more power per rack. The second phase is what we are more familiar with, and that's called inference, and this is when the model is actually being used. Each request is small, but when millions or even billions of people are interacting daily, the electricity adds up fast. Now, both phases run on high-density servers designed specifically for AI. The International Energy Agency estimates that global data centers consumed about 415 terawatt hours in 2024. That's around 1.5% of global electricity. And with AI driving demand, that number could more than double. Now, if you are anything like me, I was trying to conceptualize what 415 terawatt hours is actually about. How do we visualize the impact of that? So I'll do that in two ways. I'll give you an example of what 415 terawatt hours looks like. And that's about running between 5,000 and 6,000 flood-lit football stadiums, running at big match levels of power, all at the same time, 24 hours a day, every day of the year. That's 415 terawatt hours. Now, if we look at doubling that because of AI demand, you're taking that up to between 11,000 and 4,000 stadiums running simultaneously. So that's what that looks like. But if we kind of broaden that out to what the impact is on global electricity consumption, if we imagine global electricity like a 100-lane highway, at the moment, data centers are using between 1 and 2 lanes. And by 2030, they'll take between 3 and 4 lanes. So it's jumping up quite quickly. But I suppose the key point is that AI, it's not just a technology choice, it's an energy choice. Where and when those workloads run, whether it's on a clean grid or a fossil heavy grid, it determines whether AI becomes an accelerator of decarbonization or just another drag on the system. Right, so let's move on to water and siting. Now, as I'm sure you've heard, AI runs hot. The servers that train and operate AI models throw off a lot of heat. And to keep them cool, most large data centers use evaporative or hybrid cooling systems. These systems pull in local water and allow some of it to evaporate, which means it's consumed and not returned to the source. Siting, if you haven't heard, siting is where you build or locate the data centers. So if you put a water-hungry facility in a water-stressed region, and that's basically a place that already struggles with drought or limited supply, that environmental impact is far greater. If we look at numbers for context, Google reported that they use about 6.1 billion gallons of water for cooling in 2023. That's roughly the annual irrigation needs of about 40 golf courses. And about more than 2/3 of new US data centers since 2022 are now located in areas classified as high water stress. And I suppose taking away from this, it would be pertinent for leaders to be able to look at their suppliers and their service providers and identify whether they care enough and they've got the net zero targets in sight. So you want to be able to see whether they've used reclaimed water as a potential option, which is basically wastewater that's been treated so it can be reused safely. They could also be looking at seasonal cooling, which are techniques to switch to air-based cooling when outdoor conditions are cooler, rather than using the water. And there's also advanced liquid cooling. So it's a closed-loop system where liquid absorbs heat directly from the surface and is recirculated, cutting the evaporation to near zero. So the point is in that particular area is to be able to have a look at your service providers, just again, and what are their net zero goals? What systems are they putting in place to improve what they're doing? And then let's move to hardware and software, hardware and e-waste. So basically AI growth requires powerful chips. So we're not looking at CPUs anymore, we're looking at GPUs and TPUs, and these are clustered into dense servers. So to keep up with performance demands, companies are having to replace hardware way more often, and this leads to discarded equipment. Researchers were estimating about 1.2 to 5 million tons of electronic waste from AI hardware could accumulate in the world between 2030 and 2030. Sorry, excuse me, 2020 and 2030. And essentially what you want to know again is, are your service providers and are your suppliers, are they enacting any reuse or recycling? Are they requiring any vendor take back or trade-in programs? Because essentially every new chip has a footprint. So reuse, recycle, and buy only what you need is kind of the things that you're looking for. And then finally, in terms of costs, and there are many other costs, but we just focused for the sake of time, there's also the rebound risk, which is lesser known. So this is basically when things get cheaper and faster, we often use more of them. That's the rebound effect, also known as Jevons paradox. As AI chips and models get more efficient, total demand for AI services can climb, so system-wide energy doesn't fall as much as expected. So reviews of economy-wide rebound can erase more than half of expected energy savings from efficiency. So again, it goes back to AI comes with a cost, but essentially choosing suppliers whose procurement and operational policies and goals match with yours are incredibly important. Now I'm going to move back over to Farouk, and he's going to take us through how AI is delivering today.
So, Lauren, you kind of ruined my segue with this rebound risk. But I'm going to keep on kind of going with what I had planned, which is effectively, Lauren mentioned that today we're looking at kind of, energy use is one lane of electricity demand of one lane, 100-lane highway, right? And as AI use ramps up and data centers build out, those lanes are going to expand from one lane to 3 to 4 lanes, right? So, but there's still 97 other lanes that are driving energy demand today, right? And there's a need to optimize, decarbonize, and essentially reduce that demand, so we actually achieve the climate targets that we need to meet. And if you kind of look at it, the evidence today, there's some case studies that we'll take you through, from power and grids to risk and resilience to food and water and measurement and reporting, where AI is actually reshaping how we tackle sustainability challenges in these spaces, how it's cutting energy for critical infrastructure, forecasting climate risks, improving food and water efficiency, and delivering measurable bottom line benefits. And Ali will later take you through a demo that shows you an example of how AI can support in measurement and reporting. If we go to the next slide, Lauren, maybe we could talk a little bit about power and grids. So today, data centers and energy systems, as Lauren has clearly shared, are one of the most energy intensive operations in the world. AI is already cutting cooling loads by 15 to 20% and improving renewable grid integration, right? So allowing us to make sure that those extra 3 lanes that we take up on this 100-lane highway are coming from renewable sources and therefore effectively cleaner energy and less climate impact. For example, Vision Media, right? They use AI-driven thermal optimization to save over 1 million pounds annually and avoid over 760 tons of CO2. AI strategies globally are saving between 10 to 50 terawatt hours per year, and that's the annual electricity of a mid-sized European country, to give you some context. So that gives you a bit of some clarity around that. Now, the immediate impact by using AI to optimize power and energy is lower operating costs, fewer emissions, and stronger energy and reliability. If you go to the next one, Lauren. If we take climate risk as an example here, when it comes to climate risk, speed matters, right? AI is powering flood forecasts and early warning systems and faster disaster discovery. Google's Flood Hub provides 7-day flood forecasts in places like India and Bangladesh, where they reach 460 million people, and allow people to essentially move themselves to safer places because they know a flood is coming and they would be faced with disaster without moving. In the EU, we've avoided €1 billion in damages with AI-powered systems that are allowing earlier intervention. But it also kind of, AI doesn't just avoid disaster, it drastically reduces casualty and economic loss. And in sub-Saharan countries, you're able to boost yield of land, and you're able to prevent crop losses with AI. So AI is not, there's a cost to it, but I think the power and the exponential.
Farouk, we've just lost you.
It's this problem with my mic switching to my iPhone constantly. I don't know why. If anyone knows how to turn that off, please drop us a message in the chat. Let's go to the next slide. Can you hear me? Yeah, cool. Okay. So AI makes agriculture more resilient. 20% improvement in irrigation in Australia, water savings in India, water reduction in Spain green zone. So, and water being a critical resource, if we're able to, essentially reduce our consumption of it, we see yield improvements, and we, save more for the future. So I think, that's some examples. If we go to the next one, Lauren, when it comes to AI in measurement and reporting, I think this is a key area, and we're going to use this to kind of segue into Ali showing some examples of what we're doing here. AI is making measurement and reporting more accurate, automated, and audit ready. Satellite-based models can detect methane leaks, deforestation in real time, giving regulators and companies clear data trails, auditable information. The CDP shows that AI can cut reporting cycles by weeks by automating manual data entry and improving traceability. We see this in what we do in Zeroe by automating processes for organizations and cutting the time it takes for them to get transparency into their data, which cuts the time it takes for them to take action, right? And this matters because credibility and sustainability strategies depends not only on action, but also in the ability to prove results. And that's important as we go, as organizations start driving measurement across their value chains. And I think, we'll kind of use this as a segue to Ali here. We didn't really introduce Zeroe at the beginning of this demo because we didn't want to make it, purely about us and what we do. I'm sure many of you have read about us or seen our website and understand what we do. But for a moment, I'll just kind of give it a bit of an introduction and segue into Ali. So at Zeroe, we've really seen the value of AI in transforming the way we work as an organization. I think Ali and I debate about this quite rapidly. Like, we're a small team of about 15 individuals globally. We work in 5 different countries, and we live and breathe AI in our day-to-day work. From digesting, the conversations we have with companies, to planning out the work we do, to writing code, to just automating key processes across our business. And that's driven our productivity as a 15-person team to the productivity of what we believe is a 60-person team. Yeah, and I think that's unique to us. Now, as we've built Zeroe, and Zeroe is essentially a carbon management platform and ESG reporting tool that supports organizations collect the data that they require to measure their emissions and produce the reports they need to produce. We've really looked at the challenges organizations face in getting work done, chasing information, and needing procurement expertise to understand data, needing emissions expertise to calculate emissions. And we've said, how do we leverage AI in helping sustainability professionals get work done more efficiently and more effectively? And as we segue over, I'll let Ali pick it up from here and talk about how we see enterprises using AI in day-to-day work.
Yeah, thank you, Farouk. And yeah, in this section, we kind of want to look at what AI can deliver in sustainability more broadly, but really, those outcomes can feel distant, and unless we can connect them to what work actually looks like, in this section, we want to actually ground the conversation. How AI changes the day-to-day reality of sustainability teams, where messy files become clean categories, where tasks that once took weeks are compressed into minutes, and where accuracy doesn't depend on whether you're a trained carbon accountant. Down here, as you see, this is where the practical impact shows. In sustainability work, the bottleneck isn't the lack of ambition. It's the manual grind. Teams spend weeks trying to classify, clean, and map data before they can even start analyzing it. With AI, that grind is transformed. It can classify and clean in seconds without requiring deep expertise, and produce a transparent output that's ready for decision making instead of these bottlenecks that are endless in reconciliation. So I think we could go to the next slide and I'll do a little demo here for you guys of one practical process of it. As you see, I'm here in Zeroe's homepage. I'm gonna go first to our Atlas, this is our AI. We call it our AI agents. This is where you could create different agents for different reasonings, from cleaning data to classification to many other aspects that you could kind of build. You could either create a new agent that's predefined or create your own, or I'll show you here, for example, for PGAS, what we've done. We've shown the configuration name, the description of it, what does it affect? So meaning each agent can affect different types of processes. Here is purchase goods and services. And what the outcome we wanted to basically output or effect is this targeted column, which is product type. So essentially, we want to be able to give it a set of data, which is our input data, and from the input data, get this output, which is the product type. Now, within that, we have a prompt that you guys could write or we've written here. But this prompt basically lets the AI understand, hey, what is its task is. This is context prompting or prompt engineering. In this case, we're using Gemini, but with Zeroe, you can define and connect any AI that you want to connect to. So if you have internal deployments of the Llama 4, 3.5, or whatever you have internally, you could actually connect it, and then you define the output and you could test it. Now I'll show you that in the process. Here I've already filtered out purchase goods and service, which I'm going to manually enter the data. When I click on it, it goes to a table such as this, like a kind of like looks like a Google Sheet or an Excel. I have a lot of the functionality that you have there. To make it easy, I'm just going to kind of copy some data. These are, live demo, guys, so this is going to be interesting. So I'm going to copy this data and I'm going to paste it here. And so quickly you see this, I've already pasted everything. There was no currency, so I'm going to put, it's a United States dollar. Just like a normal sheet, you could kind of pull this, fill this information in. I filled it too much, I could go delete it, just like normal, or even like, delete data points like this. Now, as you saw in the agent, we told it, hey, we want to find this product type. All I have to do, normally, I would have to go through a list, figure out what actually attributes to these, and do the work. Now, think about it. If you have 100,000, 200,000 lines, this is somewhat of a time-consuming task. I'll just click on this, and it's classifying it for us. So what is it doing? It's reading the vendor, the description, the purchase type, the amount. Well, the amount doesn't care in this case, but it cares about the rest of it, and it's going to quickly turn it around and categorize it all. And it took me seconds to do. So really, the concept is that, hey, can I take this information, be able to output this other set of categorization in minutes? And yes, you can. So kind of wanted to give you guys a quick, demonstration and give you like a little bit of how this experience looks like. Okay. Well, we could go to the next. All right. So here. So this is why this matters. It's not about AI replacing people. Absolutely. You still need the people. It's about giving teams back their time, reducing the dependency on scarce expertise, and creating transparency so decisions can be taken. Because in climate work, the biggest risk isn't that we make the wrong moves. It's that we make these moves too slowly. And AI accelerates the steps between messy inputs to meaningful actions. And this is what we wanted to kind of show you guys. Back to you.
Thanks, Ali. It's, the demo gets more and more interesting every time I see it. So finally, I'm going to leave some food for thought. So we've covered a whole bunch of different aspects of costs of AI and what AI is actually doing in sustainability at the moment, and the opportunity cost of not using AI. And I think the reality is every technology begins in an inefficient, messy phase, from everything from early steam engines to solar panels, and even the first computers, if you remember. Instability and high resource use are normal at the start, but history shows that through innovation and scale, efficiency improves and costs fall. At least that's what we hope. So a couple of thoughts. AI is advancing whether we like it or not. It is not a pausable trend. Companies can choose to delay adoption, but the cost is real. It means slower processes, higher assurance costs, weaker margins, and declining competitiveness. Doing nothing isn't neutral, it's falling behind. Second is focus on outcomes, not perfection. The question isn't whether AI has an environmental cost, because it does. The real question is whether using AI now accelerates decarbonization faster and more effectively than waiting. 3, technology learns and optimizes. As algorithms mature and hardware improves, AI systems naturally become more energy and water efficient over time, just as other technologies have done. And fourthly, supplier choice matters. Select partners that have credible net zero goals and are actively investing in renewable energy, carbon capture, efficiency innovations. You are not going to get perfect, but with the right partners and the right focus, it can help enterprises hit sustainability targets sooner and with more precision. Delay only raises costs, while adoption, even if imperfect at first, positions companies to benefit as the technology inevitably becomes more efficient. And that is a wrap for us. But before we conclude the webinar, we have some questions. And if anybody is we're going to try and get through these questions. All right, the first question is, if we deploy this AI into our company, are you using our data to train your models? Brooke, I'll give
So I
it
think,
to you.
yeah, so I think from I'll answer that. And then I think there's one more in the chat that I want to answer, which is kind of maybe Ali will pop open his demo again to answer that. So if, are we using AI to train our models? No. If you kind of look 12 months ago, everybody was kind of trying to train their own model. 12 months ago, it was like, oh, well, let's take a model and, let's become the #1 provider of emissions accounting and emissions reporting globally. And let's make sure we get our hands on as much data as possible. And let's try to tune a model and train our model to perform better than everyone else's model. At Zeroe, we have we have a more macro view of what's happening. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to train models on all of the information available everywhere in the world. To the point now, they are now paying people to help people train the models just to extract human expertise, right? Constantly. And we don't believe that, that data that we're trying to classify or that data we're trying to extract or that data we're trying to leverage has any intrinsic value. The reality is we can pass any of that data through any of the major models and it will achieve the objectives that need to be achieved with the right prompt and the right context and the right information. So we don't train on any models on your data. We in fact allow you to choose the model you want to use, to build the prompt you want to build, to tweak the performance of that prompt you want to tweak, because that's what we believe, systems like ours should be providing customers, not a magic wand where you don't know what's happening and how it happened. And
We've lost you, Brooke.
Brooke, your voice.
Yeah. That
iPhone keeps on switching. I don't know why. So, but like not a magic wand that you don't know what's happened, but actually a platform that has structured workflows where you can inject AI into the work you do and speed it up. Yeah. And in that context, there's a question which was asked, which is, how do you solve the conundrum of auditing data that's been identified and essentially classified or structured with AI? And Ali, for that, I don't know if you still have your demo open. Maybe we can actually you had the data that was classified. So we've created essentially workflows that are structured to keep humans in place. Okay. A lot of people that I'll talk to and they'll say, well, I can't use AI for this because it gave me the wrong answer. But that's fine. The whole point of using AI was for you not to leave your judgment on the table and stop acting. It was to speed up, to get you more points of judgment that you could essentially more instances in which you could actually judge. Yeah. It's the velocity at which you're able to judge rather than spending time doing to then judge. Yeah. And an example is if Ali, you click kind of review here, in our process of our software, the AI has classified items here, and I can see items that are perhaps correctly classified and some items that are incorrectly classified. That will be dependent upon the quality of the prompt. You can very easily click on one of these boxes and change the category of one of these items. You can reject or approve this data. So if let's assume that everything was right here and we approved it, that data would then move on to the next step. So there's a human in the loop in our process. Once that data has been approved, the data is now being calculated with emissions. So now that product type has been calculated, the appropriate emissions categorization has been applied, the total emissions are available there, and someone else gets to approve it and reject it again. So for us, it's not saying, well, AI did the work and no one looked at it again. It's AI helped you do the dirty work, where you would need someone that understands procurement data to classify all that procurement data, or someone that understands GHG emissions to understand which emissions category to put against that procurement data. And then you're able to speed that process up, judge its performance, and move on. I think there's some other questions.
Yep.
Given that AI can both drive efficiency and increase overall demand, how should organizations model the net sustainability impact over a 5 to 10 year horizon? Interesting. Honestly, the overall demand increase at an organizational level versus your productivity is minimal to none. Yeah, if you look at it that way. Because if you look at kind of what we said, global, there's a lot of like, oh, if you use AI, I sent a chat to ChatGPT and it used a cup of water. Right. You did it with 5 less people drinking 5 less cups of water because you got the work done and you're able to take decisions to decarbonize and mitigate your impact as an organization. So I think at an individual organizational level, I think the impact is that the demand that you create in terms of energy usage by implementing AI is existent, but the productivity improvements and the decisions you take if you're deploying it for sustainability is far better, right? And far more impactful. And I think that's our view at Zeroe is now for us, if you don't apply AI, and you continue to not have transparency in your emissions calculations, not do as much as you could be doing as an organization, and you're deploying AI to create cartoon Studio Gilby images or editing photos, then perhaps there's a question there about what the demand.
Well, one good example is that Excel has an option to deduplicate in a column. Nowadays, it's got so easy that everybody is copy pasting that column into, ChatGPT or Gemini and running it. Those are the things that kind of creates, unnecessary usage.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And for example, in the flow that Ali showed you, what we've done is we've said, how do we make it efficient, right? If you're doing your spend-based purchase goods and services and you're classifying all of your data on a monthly basis, if you've classified it once, we use the match of the previous time rather than passing it through AI for a second time, right?
Yeah,
Therefore, not using extra tokens, not using extra energy, not creating extra demand. So even within the processes that we've implemented within our software and utilizing AI, we selectively apply it where it adds value, not just everywhere. Yeah. There's another question. What's the most recurring lesson you've seen across enterprises adopting AI for sustainability and how that shaped your current frameworks? I think the most valuable lesson that we've seen kind of is 12 months ago, even we were like, we want to use AI for this, and we're like, oh, it can't do it. Yeah. And what we've seen in 12 months is new models get released. They thought was impossible is being done in seconds. And I think the lesson for us is, if you think it doesn't work, it's just a matter of you waiting a week and something new is going to come out and it's going to work. The speed of change is enormous, right? It's insane. And the pace at which this technology is going to enable us to do things that we didn't think we were able to do using a tool like an LLM, and whatever negative news is out there in terms of but the limits of reasoning and the limits of this. It's just about understanding what those limits are today, what they may be tomorrow, and how to best apply it to get value out of it now and in the future.
Cool. I think those are that's it. That's a wrap. Thanks so much,
Oh,
guys.
there's one more question. I think
Is there?
this is a valid question, and I want to answer it. So, how this is great for enterprises? How can you be How do you think this can be adapted for SMEs? I mean, I think it's the same. I don't think it's any different. It's just a different quantum of volume of data, right? So, if you take the work that Ali just showed you, right, which is spend-based and of purchase goods and services data. What is it? I bought this. What was it? And how do I calculate the emissions on it in its most simple scope 3 category 1 form, right? The longer we speak, the more times my mic is going to switch to my phone. So that an SME doesn't have in-house expertise to do this. An SME does not have the in-house tools to do this. So this same tool can be used by an SME to get work done that they wouldn't get work done, to provide transparency into their emissions and impact, and to better inform actions. So that's kind of our view. I think it's the same. With increased usage, how can one ensure data confidentiality? For example, the possibility one can just ask AI about a company's confidential data. Well, so I'm going to try to put this in the context of our platform, and then I'll put this in the context of asking ChatGPT a random question. In the context of asking our platform about a potential company's confidential data, so our platform only has the data a company inputs into it. Okay. So AI is just a medium to talking to that data, if we look at it that way, right? Or accessing and processing that data. And when we're deploying an AI instance for a company where we are providing AI functionality, as we mentioned, we don't train on that data. That data is an organization's data, and an LLM is just talking to that data, processing it, and giving an output. So that data is not, we're not accessing any confidential data unless an organization has made that data available to Zeroe. Now, in the context of you typing a message to an LLM and asking it about information that, I mean, if ChatGPT is training on your organization's confidential data, then it probably means that your organization's confidential data is not confidential because they probably accessed it somewhere in the world and trained on it. So I think that's probably, it's online somewhere.
Farooq, just to jump in and add a little bit to what you were saying in terms of access to confidential data. So just going back to the platform, and this may or may not touch on that, we've got roles-based access. So basically, when everybody gets access to your tenant in the platform, you can determine who gets what access to what information. So, if HR, for example, is pulling in a bunch of confidential information into the platform, and you've got a team of HR personnel accessing the website, you can also give individual access and limit access as well. So not everybody will see all the information. So I think that's critical in terms of your access and your security around confidential data that's in this platform.
Yeah. I agree. That's relevant, right? So I think that's not an AI element. That's more about role-based access and segmentation of information available to people using a tool. We've got another question, which is, well, what about the cost and skill for SMEs? And then the issue is, so far available solutions are prohibitive for SMEs. So I think cost of AI it's like that. Yeah. There's going to be a bubble when everybody realizes how expensive it really is versus the venture money that's poured into it. But I think, at the end of the day, cost is going to go down. So everything new is expensive and everything becomes cheaper over time. So that will change. I think when it comes to like skills, Ali showed you the enterprise, like this is how a prompt is written, right? This is the magic behind the wand. But really, like, a platform like ours, we can spin up recipes, right? So pre-prescribed classification models that are tuned for a particular SME business. That means they're able to kind of use that. Are we particularly an SME solution? I think our focus is working with enterprises. That's where we as an organization see the largest kind of impact in terms of deploying a tool like ours. Do I see SME? Do I see SME? Applicability or opportunities to apply to SMEs? Yes, but I don't see that much SME adoption. I guess that would probably be my view. Like desire to adopt. All right. I think we got quite a few people that hung on for the whole thing.
Any other questions? No, happy. Thanks for the questions. And thanks for Farooq and Ali for joining us. I hope this was of value. And if you guys have any more questions that you want answered, feel free to email us at marketing@zeroe.io, and I'll make sure that those answers make your inbox. Great, guys. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.